Well. What have we here? It's Saturday, October 26th at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm Bob Harris. It's time for the Ask Me Anything live stream. First, the website is footballguys.com. Appreciate you joining me here at 11 a.m. every Saturday during the season for this Ask Me Anything. Also on Tuesdays for the 7 p.m. Eastern Time for the On the Hot Seat. I had Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio Superstar and my co-host, also my Football Guys Daily Update podcast co-host, Mike Dempsey joined us this week. We talked waiver wires and all kinds of stuff. You can go watch the replay if you'd like. Still plenty of pertinent information there. I'll be back this week with another fantastic guest that I already know, but I haven't confirmed yet, so stay tuned. Hit the subscribe button, the notification bell. Like me, don't like me. We'll have some discussions here. Always look forward to this. It's a very good time. Appreciate seeing everybody here. Steve, Andrea, great to see you. Lester, welcome in. I see the questions starting and we'll get into them. Hello to the other five people. Steve, everyone getting the morning greetings in. Albert, how are you? Royal Slade, good to see you. Have everyone happy that you can always make it. I'm always happy to see everyone make a little time for me today, and we'll have some discussions and talk about things. We'll answer the questions. I see the questions. I'm not going to get to them right away. Probably not going to get to all the questions, right? If you don't get an answer, go to footballguys.com. There is a world, an entire universe of rankings there waiting for you, and including mine. So I might pick some of the more interesting questions over some of the more mundane here. And a lot of the questions are repeated. So if you feel like I didn't get to your questions and you didn't listen to the top, I hope you can get a chance to listen from the top. And the thing we're going to start out with this week and every week is a rundown of some of the injury issues and some of the health concerns, or in this case, or in some cases, non-concerns that we've been dealing with. The first and foremost this week, Jaden Daniels. We'll start. I'll go by position, everybody. So kind of makes it a little easier to keep it organized. Appreciate that. Where's the Jagger? Oh, Dempsey. We'll be on tonight. Sirius XM NFL and Fantasy Sports Radio simulcast at 8 to 11. So we got you covered. And by the way, if you don't get your questions here, you can call in the radio show. I'm on 6 days a week. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 10 to midnight, Saturday, 8 to 11. Sunday, I'm on with Jeff Mann. So always available, always here for the discussions. Mentioned those injuries. We're going to kind of go by position and kind of set the table here. And then I'm going to talk about a couple matchups that I'm trying to be aggressive and approach. And we're going to talk about some other things and we do some questions and have a good time. We'll be happy by all, I'm sure. Jaden Daniels, the latest this morning is he'll go through the walkthrough today. He got on the practice field yesterday. I'm a little surprised. The early reporting this week was, it was doubtful he would play, not like, let's talk about that. Just 1 second. You all get your sleeper app, right? And you see somebody is questionable. And you see this on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, in some cases. It's not true. They're not anything, right? They'll not be anything. So nobody is anything until Friday, except for the Thursday night game. So when you see the questionable and you see some designation, it's just speculation. So the word doubt, there was doubt that Jaden Daniels would play. But he's gone on the field, and so they're going to watch him. They have all three quarterbacks up on the active roster. Jeff Driscoll behind Marcus Mariota, who fared relatively well against the Panthers last week. Most players do fare well against that defense. And so he's going to go through the walkthroughs today. They're going to see where he's at. I want to say this feels like a massive okey-doke, but we don't know, and it's a late afternoon kickoff. So, if you don't have Marcus Mariota and you have a player who's fully healthy playing in the early window, these are going to have kind of decisions that you'll have to figure out on Sirius XM. When you'll be on advance, or I don't know what this means. On Sirius XM, I'll be on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio and NFL Radio tonight from 8 to 11, if that helps. I'm not sure what the question was. That's a Jackson reverse dinky in the background. Love the guitar questions. And no, I'm not like a badass guitar player. I'm a drummer, but I like to play guitar. So Jaden Daniels. I'm already off the rails today. Jaden Daniels, this honestly feels like, he's improving. And so I'm going to watch this one. You're going to have fallbacks in place if you want to play him. If it's not Marcus Mariota, it's going to have to be somebody else in the late afternoon window, the Sunday night window, or the Monday night window. Some other issues at quarterback. Derek Carr's not going to play again. Spencer Rattler will start again this week. Andy Dalton is not going to play this week. He was injured in a car accident. And we're back to Bryce Young, but he's not going to have some weapons. We'll talk about that. No Deontay Johnson, no Adam Thielen. I'll talk about that in a second. Tua Tagovailoa is back. Oh, well, by the way, I'll just get through the injury guy. Will Levis has been limited practice all night. I don't know if they're going to be looking to get him back in the mix or not. I mean, it seems like this team has moved on. The trade of DeAndre Hopkins is like they're waving the flag almost, right? And if you didn't hear, DeAndre Hopkins was traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. We can talk about him as well and what his role might be. But yeah, I don't know if we'll see Will Levis or not. And if we do see Will Levis, you should not be playing Will Levis. I don't even know if in 2 quarterback leagues, although that door is open, Mason Rudolph will get the start if Will Levis does not go. I mentioned Tua Tagovailoa returns this week. There is some hope for the offense there and the skill players there. We'll see. I'll talk about Tyreek Hill in a minute. Other than that, I think, Aaron Rodgers is a little nicked up, but he's off the injury report. Running back, Travis Etienne, limited all week. Doug Peterson's calling him a game-time decision. Would be much more comfortable playing Tank Bigsby if there is no Etienne. And so here's the split there. Tank Bigsby's been great. He's an outstanding runner. No doubt he's been super successful and productive. And Etienne will cap him, right, as a receiving asset because Tank Bigsby just isn't a good receiver right now. I mean, that's not his part of his game. Bucky Irving listed as questionable, and it sounds like he will play if we're to believe Todd Bowles. He got in the practice field Friday, missed the previous 2 days. I think it's a toe injury. So that's kind of interesting. Tyjae Spears looks like he has a chance to return this week for Tennessee. He might be a limiting factor. It's a tough running matchup against the Detroit Lions. I'm not excited about this anyway. Jerome Ford ruled out. Nick Chubb back in the mix. I think this is going to be a pass-heavy day for the Cleveland Browns. We'll talk a little bit about that. Player I have a hunch on. But Nick Chubb is obviously playable. They were like 8-point underdogs in this one. It's going to be kind of tough for them to, I think, establish a ground game and get anything going there. So we'll see. I mean, like Nick Chubb's very good, right? Like I feel like I'm always being dismissive of Nick Chubb. I'm not being dismissive of Nick Chubb. Fairly dismissive of the offense and the circumstances that he finds himself in. Jameis Winston is going to start a quarterback, by the way. I should have probably mentioned that with the quarterback news. Because Dorian Thompson-Robinson still dealing with a finger issue, and Deshaun Watson done for the year if you're just waking up and figuring out that there's football. Tyreek Hill, I mentioned, he's listed as questionable. He did not practice Friday after showing up to the injury report on Thursday. It's a foot issue. Mike McDaniel said Friday before Hill didn't practice that he's optimistic Hill will play. So, and that the Hill not practicing, I don't know if that changes that dynamic or not. I don't think it does. I think they probably knew at the time that he wasn't going to practice. And, that's kind of just, where it's at. Maybe they're giving him a day of rest. Obviously, he can play without practicing. He's a very good player. But just something to watch. It's an early kickoff, so you'll know Jalen Waddle, I think, is a good play this week. Like, Tua coming back, it feels like you can at least, get rolling. So, get back to the wide receivers of interest here. Oh, yeah. Deebo Samuel listed as questionable. It's a Sunday night game. He's out of the hospital early this week, back on the practice field. It seems like he's trending in a good direction. Juwan Jennings ruled out of that game. Ricky Pearsall standing by, among others. DK Metcalf listed as doubtful. That means he will not play. I'm sorry to deliver that bad news because I would have liked to play him. Buffalo Bills, not a great passing matchup, but I mean, still some of the other pieces there. Jake Bobo is kind of the guy you figure to take the snaps. Don't know that he's the guy that I'd want to force into lineups this week. JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Tyler Lockett also seem available. The Buccaneers, we're going to probably get a lot of questions about the Buccaneers and 49ers receiving rooms. Brandon Ayuk done for the year. So Mike Evans out for this week and probably through week 11, return week 12 with a hamstring injury. Chris Godwin's out for the season. So Jalen McMillan, Sterling Shepard, Trey Palmer, the next men up. Kate Otten is there. Rashad White are good receiving assets. I think this is going to be one where we get a lot of questions, and I'll talk about the situations a little bit here in a moment. Bengals, T. Higgins turned up on the injury report as questionable with a quad injury. What the heck? Early afternoon kickoff. Higgins has been on fire. He's been outperforming the two of the last 3 games. He's outplayed his teammate Jamar Chase, who's also very good, by the way. Zay Flowers questionable. He got into limited practice on Friday. I saw some video on the X machine where he was kind of dancing. I thought that was fantastic, very helpful to see him moving around. So I think he's probably leaning towards playing. Chris Olave is healthy and ready to go. I mentioned the Panthers, Deontay Johnson and Adam Thielen both ruled out. So Xavier Legette, Jonathan Mingo, David Moore, Jalen Coker, Jatavian Sanders. Get your Chuba Hubbard going. Jameson Williams has been suspended, so he'll be out for 2 games. He did not appeal the suspension. Jacoby Myers looks like he will be back in the mix. He's listed as questionable. I mean, I think he's an easily overlooked commodity. It's not a great offense. I realize all this, but he was like wide receiver 24 by the end of last season. He was very good in New England too. So interesting guy. Calvin Ridley came off the injury report. Not been a good season for Calvin Ridley. Detroit is a great matchup for the passing game. It's going to be hard to run, so you'd think there would be some meat on that bone. I'll remind you that Calvin Ridley has 183 receiving yards this season. Some of the players who have more than that, the list includes Will Dissly. Probably tells you where he's at. The number 1 wide receiver. Oh, yeah. Scampers had a note. Waddle also popped up with a quad. I think that got overlooked in the Tyreek Hill discussion. I don't think I'm interested. I don't think I'm as concerned because I don't think he drew a designation. Let me just double check that. I think he got away without a problem. Like he didn't draw a designation. By the way, Tua is listed as questionable, but that's kind of like a formality kind of thing. So no, I'm less worried about that, Scampers, although it's something we probably want to watch. And by the way, this is a good call here. While I'm sitting here discussing things and not able to get to every darn question, talk amongst yourselves. There's really smart people in this chat and helpful people, and so kind of hash it out amongst yourselves, and I'll jump in when I can. So I mentioned Ridley taking your chances, even healthy. No Tyler Boyd moves up in the rotation. Keeney Westbrook and Keeney too. The Chargers, Quentin Johnston is listed as doubtful. Lab McConkey questionable, DJ Chark questionable, all those guys. So Justin Herbert seemed like he was hitting a stride last week, threw the ball like crazy against Arizona. Curtis Samuel ruled out for Buffalo. Jalen Polk not going to play due to a concussion. Alan Lazard listed as doubtful. That's interesting. So a great spot. There, the tight ends, George Kittle listed as questionable for Sunday night. Watch that. Hopefully we get some news that kind of, I haven't seen anyone say anything one way or the other. He's been working on a limited basis. He tends to get in the game, but boy, you don't want to have a fallback. You don't want to go get stuck in that situation. Taysom Hill is back off the injury report. Maybe this offense will function again. I don't expect it to function also with Spencer Rattler as much, right? It's just it's a hard slog. Dallas Goedert out again this week. Grant Calcaterra will continue to fill in for him. Kickers, no Jake Moody again. And Brandon Aubrey, who has been missing time in practice due to jury duty, will play. They say they'll figure that out. Why wouldn't they? So let me roll through here and see if anything's going on exciting before I start digging into the questions and answers. There's a couple things I wanted to discuss, just get off the top because I know there's probably going to be questions. What are we doing with Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay receivers? I mean, there's opportunities abound there, right? Do I know these guys are going to be the, 1-for-1 replacements for Chris Godwin and Mike Evans? I'm pretty sure they're not. So Jalen McMillan is a popular play. I like maybe Sterling Shepard as much, if not more this week, but it's like a relative thing. They're both like flex level plays for me. I don't know that I want to force them into lineups if I had better options. It's, the opportunities are great, right? But sometimes if you have time to see it, I'll talk about another player who got an opportunity last week and who showed something with it. And now I'm more interested in him. I want to maybe give the same opportunity to these Tampa receivers and see kind of how that plays out. And I know we saw the last game against Atlanta and Tampa Bay, huge shootout. We saw Kirk Cousins throw for 500 yards. It was a massive offensive exposition. So I get the idea of doing this. I mean, I'd probably want to take the safer plays, which to me seemed like Rashad White as a receiving asset out of the backfield. And Cade Otton, who, by the way, has come on strong over the last month. Cade Otton's had a good role over the course of the season. He just hasn't done as much with it as he has in recent weeks. And then last week, he kind of lit on fire. So, so there's that. So be cautious with these guys coming in. I would say the same with Ricky Pearsall. Don't get your hopes up too much or don't set your expectations too high. I know he's projected as wide receiver 52, I want to say this week on the Football Guys projections. Also on those Tampa wide receivers, I think they're all projected like late 30s, 38, 39, 40, 41, somewhere in that range, which is a playable range, right? So like that. Oh, I mentioned a receiver that I like a lot that this week in particular because of the matchup. If you go check out my in and out column this week, it's, I get into a little more in depth in some of the processes here, which is kind of what my goal is here is like I know the idea is answering questions and we'll answer questions, but part of this is the process. Why am I answering a question like this? I think you can all go to the rankings and read the rankings and get the answers, right? I don't want to make this show about reading rankings. I'll make this show about discussing the decision-making process and how we get where we get and how we arrive there. I would love for you guys to have those conversations in the chat, and I see them ongoing, and I appreciate that immensely, and I'll try to get caught up here. But Cedric Tillman, you look last week, and so we have some changes here. So, like, this is not hard and fast, but I'm kind of bullish on him, and that doesn't mean he's going to be in all my season-long lineups. Might be in one or two, right, where I don't have a great option. Another guy is Rashad Bateman, who's come on over the course of the last few weeks, like the last month, he's been really good. And Zay Flowers is a little nicked up in this single game, right? There's two guys that I think are plays. Cedric Tillman had the 12 targets last week. He did it with 3 different quarterbacks. 7 of those targets came from Dorian Thompson-Robinson. But is there reason to believe against stepping into the Amari Cooper role, right? Going against the Baltimore pass defense that's given up the most passing yards in the league and has been very generous to perimeter wide receivers. Jameis Winston, average depth of target about almost 5 yards more than over his career than Deshaun Watson's been in Cleveland. I mean, I think there's something there. He'll be more of a DFS play, a cheap DFS play. I think Rashad Bateman's a solid play in season long as well. But these are kind of like players that I want to call them hunch players. And this is the thing about hunches, everybody. I have hunches. So do you. So, when do you decide to play your hunches over more proven players? That's, these are some personal things. So if you have questions about those, I'll answer those as well. But another guy I have a hunch about, and it's not even a hunch. It's Bo Nix, who's been playing extremely well. He's run for 136 yards over the last 2 games. I don't know if he'll need to run as much this game, but he's also passing better. But it's Carolina Panthers. Like, fire people up against the Panthers if you have a hunch about them. That is a totally reasonable expectation that the offensive skill players against the Panthers are going to perform well. Just is. And so Javonte Williams, heck yeah. Cortland Sutton probably would be playing him. I know what happened last week. Troy Franklin's coming on. Is he a DFS play for me? Yes, he is this week. So there we go. Just some thoughts and notions and things. And there are other players that are going to have like great matchups that I'm going to be less interested in. Let's get to some questions here. Start rolling through it. Hi. If you just got here, I'm Bob Harris. Footballguys.com is the website. Rankings are there. Everything we're going to discuss. Any questions I'm not getting to are answered in the rankings, undoubtedly. Or the projections, if you just want the raw numbers from our staff, that's perfectly suitable as well. I look at those an awful lot. Tons of great articles and content up there, including my fantasy notebook that came out on Thursday, my polarizing players article with Gary Davenport came out Friday, and my in and out column that came out today. Kind of, I'd like to call them logic-based hot takes, but they're not as hot this week. I played a little more conservative because last week I got pummeled. Everyone got pummeled last week, right? This is the thing about the darn fantasy football. is you have no, I mean, we like to think we're super smart, and we are. And all that matters 0% once the games start getting played and the ball starts bouncing. I had in my fantasy notebook this week, I had a thing. I want to pull it up because I think it's worth, kind of highlighting just, I mean, this is a volatile game we play, people. And so let me bring this up. Josh Larkey put out a tweet last week, and he called it the worst week for fantasy football in recent memory. I don't know if he was wrong, and here's what he had listed. CJ Stroud, 86 passing yards. Jaden Reed, 2 catches for 10 yards. Devontae Smith, 1 catch minus 2 yards. Tyreek Hill, 1 catch, 8 yards. Jalen Waddle, 1 catch, 11 yards. Deontay Johnson, 1 catch, 17 yards. Sam Laporta, 1 catch, 25 yards. And I saw a question. Is it okay to drop Sam Laporta? Just like I said with Mark Andrews earlier this year, yes, if he's blocking a spot in your roster, and I know Mark Andrews has come on to score touchdowns, and he's been phenomenal. I don't know that he's going to continue to be phenomenal. Other guys are going to score touchdowns too. Jamison Williams, 1 catch, 4 yards. Jaden Daniels had 6 passing yards before he left, 50 rushing yards. Josh Downs had an illness, ended up with 1 catch for 3 yards. I mean, it's just crazy. New York Giants, 105 passing yards on the day. Deebo Samuel, we thought he was going to play. We heard he had an illness right before the game. We didn't know how bad the illness was. He played 3-4 snaps. Travis Kelce had 17 yards. Cortland Sutton, I mentioned, 0 yards. So Ramondre Stevenson, 7 carries, 18 yards. Jerry Jeudy, 1 catch. Christian Watson, 1 catch. I mean, overall, Larkey summed up 11 of 24 teams threw for under 200 passing yards. Well, this is the nature of the game. So all of our best laid plans are only as good as the outcomes of the game. So there you go with that. Hey, chat, would you do that? I would probably do that. Let's get some questions here. Faithful listener and love the show. Thank you, Bruce. Geno or Lawrence? I would still play Geno over Lawrence. I think the Packers match. I don't think this is going to be a great game for the Jaguars. Sorry, Duval fans out there. I'm playing McLaurin. Talk about it. It's a tough matchup. Jalen Johnson. We don't think he's going to have his quarterback. And by the way, Otton over Kincaid for me this week. And I think that's true in the projections. I think he's projected for it to be about tight end 7, 8, and Kincaid 10 or so in the double digits. I'm probably playing McLaurin and Tillman. McConkey's late game going to be questionable. You could probably switch over to him if you're worried about the quarterback situation. You could wait. So Tillman's an early game, so probably the easier pick there to make. And then you could decide between McConkey and McLaurin based on McConkey being active and Jaden Daniels being active or not. It's a tough matchup for McLaurin, though, and I don't know if Marcus Mariota can get the job done. I still have him ranked over both McConkey and Tillman. And I think the projections would have McConkey well ahead of Tillman. Tillman's a little bit of my hunch player. Don't play my hunches, play yours. You're welcome. Huckleberry. I need running back for PPR, Brian Johnson Jr. versus the Bears, Chuba Hubbard versus the Broncos. I think I'm probably going to be a run-heavy game if there is no Jaden Daniels. So I probably and I think Hubbard is in a rough spot. Let me just double-check the projections and see how bullish they are on. I don't think they're very bullish on Hubbard. Yeah, they like Hubbard better. I'm fine with that. I think he'll get the workload, and they're going to have to rely on something other than the passing attack. But the Denver Broncos know this as well. So, but I would play Hubbard over Brian Robinson Jr. this week, just because Hubbard is the main game, is the only game in town there, so to speak, right? I mean, don't see Miles Sanders chipping in a ton. On the Brian Thomas Jr. versus Packers, Jalen Waddle versus Cardinals, I'm probably playing Brian Thomas Jr. I know he's got a tough matchup too against Jair Alexander, but I'm probably playing the hotter hand. And then I can see how it goes with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. Maybe if there was no Tyreek Hill, I'd be more interested in Waddle, and you'll know that in the early kickoff. Another Brian Thomas Jr. So I probably like them pretty much in this order. Thomas, I might like Waddle a little better. You could take your chances on the last one. I'd probably play Thomas and Dell. I think it's a good game for a bounce back game for CJ Stroud after a horrible week last week. Let's see. And that was a standard, right? Yes. So definitely Brian Thomas Jr. and Dell at the top of that right now. Good morning. I'm glad you love the show. I appreciate you listening. Oh, okay. I missed the question. Yes, I would. Like, so am I in and out calling? Like, Marvin Harrison Jr. has not scored more than what, 6-7 points in the last 3 games. He does have a super high end upside. So if you have a swing for the fence kind of need, maybe you want to go with that. I'm probably not. I probably think Bateman's as good a swing for the fence play right now, playing with a red hot quarterback. Like, so I have Marvin Harrison Jr. ranked down in the flex level category. And not far off Bateman and Tillman. I just feel better about him. I've just seen nothing that tells me they're going to make a concerted effort to get Marvin Harrison Jr. the ball. The times they have, it's been like sporadic. And again, it's been 3 games of double-digit points. And the Miami defense is not a joke. So I think these are both reasonable options to me. I want to say Bateman has had double-digit scoring in 4 of his last 5 games. Tillman, that's a little more of a risk. That's a little more of a me call. You don't have to make that same call. Maybe you want to play Marvin Harrison Jr. I know the projections would agree with playing Marvin Harrison Jr. over Tillman. I think it's closer on Bateman. Some running backs: Tyrone Tracy Jr., Zach Moss, Madison, Ray Davis. I know the projections like Madison the most. I'm not sure I do against Kansas City. I might like Moss better. I think Moss and Tracy are ranked consecutively this week, so I probably start with those 2 and lay off the other 2. I'll see if I can catch up, see how things are going in the chat. I've been falling behind. Tolbert this week, I like him just fine. I think he's a reasonable wide receiver 3 option if you're looking for to play someone. Amari Cooper or George Pickens. Pickens coming off a very good game, right? A surprisingly good game. We're gonna catch that same lightning in a bottle. It's against the New York Giants. I'm probably going that way. I'm probably playing Pickens over Cooper this week. I do like Cooper this week. How bad is it? It's that bad. So that decision might be made for you. Like, that's what I'd hope for. It's an early kickoff and Tyjae Spears is questionable. If he's not, it's not a great matchup. I'd probably go Charbonnet. Let's see. Scroll back up a little bit. I see there's Anthony Richards discussion out here. This is very kind of you, Mr. Scampers. I appreciate this. Would I be looking to buy low on Deontay Johnson? I would. You wonder if he's not going to get traded. We're a week away. 11-5, I think, is a big day, I guess. The trade deadline. So yeah, I probably would be. And you might end up not getting a great deal if he's stuck with Bryce Young, because we saw what's happened there up to this point. But yes, I think it's a good buy low opportunity. I hope everyone who was out there looking to buy Dolphins receivers got their purchase in before the Tua situation changed. These are kind of things. I feel like I'm trying not to get overly excited. Purdy is looking pretty replaceable to me. I think that is at the moment he is, right? Like with the receiver, 2 quarterbacks, right? Brock Purdy and Baker Mayfield. What should we expect from them? Purdy looks a little bit lesser like he's struggling, right? I know Grant Cohn was reporting after the game that Kyle Shanahan sat at his locker for 5 minutes lecturing, right? Like Grant had never seen anything like it. Just interesting. And I think Purdy's up for the tough coaching. I mean, that's part of what got him where he is, but it just hasn't looked quite right. I mean, even with the top weapons there, right? So maybe the shakeup, maybe a change there. I think one of the big keys for this offense has been the lack of Christian McCaffrey. You'll be surprised to learn he's a very good player, and his absence has been an issue. Where's it been an issue the most? In the red zone. They've struggled in the red zone. And Christian McCaffrey, some of those short plays that he could, turn into, do a little more on his own, some of the scoring just isn't happening. So I kind of agree with this. I'm kind of a Purdy person. Let's see what else we got. Kittle, if he plays, I would agree this. All right, let me go back up towards the top and get caught up and see what all the conversation I'm missing out on. I know there's all kinds of good stuff and all kinds of good questions. And I apologize if I'm not getting to every single question. I do my best, but I don't know that all of the questions serve everybody. I see you all out there having great conversations and figuring things out on your own. And I'm happy to see that. Little allergies today. Oh, here we go. So how do we decide a situation like this, right? Taysom Hill, Ray Davis, Mecole Hardman. So first of all, we say, what are the anticipated roles? Mecole Hardman kind of came on a little bit when Juju got hurt, right? And got a little something done. But now they've filled that hole with DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe they split it up. Let's talk about that spot a little bit too. Because I think it's interesting. What do we expect for DeAndre Hopkins in Kansas City? Is he going to come in and be a 1-for-1 replacement for the pieces that are gone there? That role has been fantastic. From Rashee Rice, the numbers he put up on a weekly basis early in the season were fantastic. The numbers Juju Smith-Schuster came in as a plug-and-play option there were fantastic until his hamstring gave out. And then Mecole Hardman came in and kicked a little tail. What might DeAndre Hopkins do? I know Jason Wood from our projection team at Football Guys thinks it's going to be about 5 targets a game to start out with. That could ramp up to something what we saw for Rice and Juju, which was 7 to 12 a game. So I don't want to overstate the case, but I think this might be a good spot. This is definitely a better spot for Hopkins. Obviously, I don't overstate my case. He's going from Tennessee, where he had 173 or 175 total receiving yards to this point this season, to Kansas City, where I still think Kansas City is going to lean on their defense and the rushing attack. But man, we saw Rashee Rice. We've seen that role be productive. So I think it's a great role. I don't think Mecole Hardman is going to own that role. That's my problem there. Ray Davis, boy, looks great. Don't know what the workload's going to be. Taysom Hill, to me, is the play of this in a super deep league. Hoping he's healthy, thinking he will get more work under center in prime leverage spots with Spencer Rattler at the helm. Makes perfect sense to me. I'm eager to see what Taysom Hill can do or what this offense does with Taysom Hill. Seems like he's been a missing cog. Now, there have been other missing cogs, so I don't want to overstate that case either. But it does seem like his absence has been an issue when all the other pieces were there. Chris Olave comes back this week too, by the way, if I didn't mention that at the top. I'm all about Kareem Hunt this week. He is one of my hunch plays. I think he's ranked highly. I think he's running back 12 on the projections, and I think he's going to finish better than that. Jordan Mason is listed, so Mason is projected at 10. Hunt is projected at 12. I myself would probably play Hunt over Mason in this one going against Las Vegas, but they're 10 and 12, right? So this is a you call more than a me call, if that makes sense. Half point, McLaurin or Montgomery. In this case, just given the circumstances, it's an early kickoff for Detroit. I'm probably going to just go ahead and go Montgomery. I know it's not the best matchup against Tennessee, but they do have some weaknesses there that maybe the Detroit Lions can exploit. And McLaurin, I'm just not sure. Again, it's he has a tough individual matchup. It's a tougher defense than we've seen, and I don't know what the quarterback situation is going to be, and that would be determinative for me. If I thought a fully healthy Jaden Daniels was rolling, this would be a much more interesting question for me, or much more difficult question for me. Good morning, Jacob. Superflex. Tua versus Arizona, Russell Wilson against the Giants, or Kirk Cousins against Tampa Bay. Hunter Henry over Sam Laporta, and I'm not excited about either of them. I don't think either of them are tight end one candidates this week. But I play Hunter Henry this week. I know. So what are we doing with Laporta, right? So what is the optimistic view? Gary Davenport and I wrote about this in our polarizing players this week. What are we doing? Is this a buy time, or should we expect a spike for Laporta? Maybe, right? I don't know if they won't figure this out in other ways. It just seems like the game plans have not gone towards Laporta, who, like last year, his work was based on a huge volume of 20+% target share. He's just not seeing that. Does the departure, and it's not like Jameson Williams was demanding such a huge target share that Laporta couldn't get his. It just seems like they've taken a different approach. I felt like drafting Laporta where we were drafting him was not a wise call, just because so much of his production last year came on double-digit touchdowns. Those are not a sticky stat, the touchdown scoring, and he's not scoring them, although it was nice to see him get in the end zone, along with Mark Andrews. All these players, so I saw the question earlier, is it okay to drop Laporta? I think it is, just given the circumstances. I probably wouldn't. I'd probably be looking for other possibilities right now just because of the circumstances with Jameson Williams. Like, we don't live in a perfect world. Sometimes you have some tough calls to make. And I think here's my cliche. Divorce the name from the numbers. Just look at what the numbers you're getting from them and forget the emotional investment that came with the name and the sunk cost of draft value, because we're past that part now. So anyway, I'm playing Hunter Henry over Laporta. I think neither of them are my ideal plays this week. I'm probably playing I want to get two in there. I'd probably play Russ and Cousins though this week. So I talked a little bit about this. I don't know that it's why would it be this week? Why hasn't it been every week? Like, look at what the New York Giants do with Malik Neighbors. It's every week. Get Malik Neighbors involved week because he's your best receiving asset. And it hasn't come at the expense of other players, even without a great quarterback. You got a better quarterback in Arizona, arguably, than Daniel Jones. I think that's not a controversial statement, maybe. Like I want to, pay attention to what's happening, divorce the name from the numbers. As I mentioned, 3 straight 6-point, I think it is, games for Marvin Harrison. I mean, at some point you've got to pay attention to what's happening. Let me throw out some other numbers at you here because I have them. Yes, it's yard guy day. They're not doing my yard. They planted seeds last week, and so they're not doing them up. What do we got? First 3 weeks. First 4 games. Wide receiver 1 overall. Wide receiver 20, wide receiver 27. After that, it's gotten not as good. Failed to score more than 6 points since in the last 3 weeks. And one of those, he missed a game due to concussion. His receiving yards per game average since week 1 has diminished, right? Like, it's just not there. So Miami's given up the fewest fantasy points to wide receivers, and only one, DK Metcalf, has reached 15 points against them. It's just not good. So so at what point do we decide we're playing the guy we drafted who isn't who we drafted versus other guys? I think that's it's a tough question, Steven. I don't want to, so I'm not diminishing it. I think Watson's a risky play. I think Tolbert's probably a safe play. I think Dubs is a fairly safe play. They're playing the Jaguars and the Packers, and it's a really easy defense. So I might consider all those guys. But also, I want to say the projections probably still favor Harrison. Maybe not. Maybe I'm overthinking it. Harrison's 32. Dubs is ahead of him. I think of the guys you list, only Dubs. I think after him is Tolbert is where? Yeah, the other guys are after him. So the projections have Marvin Harrison Jr. at wide receiver 32, right? My rankings have him slightly lower at the tail end of the wide receiver 3 category. So I probably would feel perfectly fine playing Tolbert. But again, these are hunch plays. So I've kind of laid it out. I don't know, you can interpret the numbers as well as I can. I'm playing Cousins over Tua. Brian Robinson versus Chicago. Brian Thomas Jr. versus Green Bay. Is this a standard, Andrea? Oh, half PPR. I'm probably playing Brian Thomas Jr. I should probably check my flex rankings and just Yeah, I'm probably playing Brian Thomas Jr. this week, Andrea. Brees Hall, Kenneth Walker, or James Cook. I like them in the order you list them. Although, could we make an argument for Kenneth Walker the third this week against a Buffalo defense that's been super generous to running backs? See what the projectors think. The projectors thinks that's true. Where is Hall? No, the projectors disagree with that. Yeah, no, they like my order. I think that's order's good. Like Hall's come on the last couple of weeks. I think his season-long numbers wouldn't represent that, but these are three great picks. But I think it's a pretty easy call just in terms of what the two games with Todd Downing as a play caller have been fantastic. Rachel, good morning. This is good. This is tough. Oh, 3. Not that tough. Henry, Dobbins. The third one's tough. Third one's definitely tough. I think so. Two ways I would look at this. Do I need looking at with Derrick Henry, you've got a huge high upside guy and a high floor guy. And Dobbins, I think you have a great high floor guy with a great matchup. Just checking some news. It's not relevant to what we're discussing here. Scampers, are we breaking any news today? So, this to me is the kind of place where I go for a swing for the fence play, like a guy that really has huge upside because you have two really strong floor guys. I go with Devon Achane. I think they're all great plays. Josh Jacobs against Jacksonville. I think they might be throwing the ball more in that one. Trade Kupp for Jacobs. If you have a need for running back, it's not an unfair trade. If I had to pick two in a PPR, it would be Achane and Brian Thomas Jr. You scroll down the chat and see what I'm missing down at the bottom. What you guys are arguing about or what's being asked is really way more interesting than some of these questions. No offense. Breaking news. That's what it was. I saw this. What else happened? There was something else happened too. Wyatt Teller. Oh, it was you got it. I'm being booed now. Oh my God, Lester, that's killer. My subscriber contest team did not fare well. I think Dempsey's still in it. Mine is not fare well. Like that call. All right, let me roll up here. I think this is a pretty good question, right? Would anyone start Pearsall over Keon and Worthy? Yes. Yeah, I think that's a perfectly suited range. Like Worthy, you're kind of hoping for the big play. Keon, you're hoping for the big play. I think Pearsall, if you're playing in a PPR league and you want a higher floor and a safer play, might be Pearsall. I'd say safer play just by anticipated role, right? Because we know what Keon and Worthy's role are. They're kind of the big play threats. Interesting. I'd go Bo Nix over Geno either way. Read my in and out column at footballguys.com. It's a website of some renown. You'll like it. By the way, I'm Bob Harris. Hi, everybody. If you're just tuning in, thanks for coming. Every Saturday, we do this Ask Me Anything live stream. Try to talk you through some of the lineup situations more than just answering questions. Try to put a little bit more behind it and discuss some of the approaches and, how we should view these things or how it's been helpful for me to view these things over the course of many thousand years of playing this game. Yes, many thousand. Seems like just this year alone, it's been many thousand, right? So yes, Benny, I'm in on Bo Nix this week. I believe actually the projections would have this the same as well. No. Not just not in a vacuum. Like not just like as the question's framed. This is interesting because I'm in on Kraft this week on my in and out column. I love the matchup. The Jaguars are horrible at stopping tight ends. But also Auden is the guy there that seems to he and Rashad White. I mean, I mentioned this before. Like Scampers nailed this. Kraft for upside. For me, yes. So you must believe that was the case last year, Jaws. And like, could it be the case again? Like, so here's, let me go on my brief rant here, just because being right and wrong or in the moment, what is today is not next week or what it was last week. This is a week to week game, but we have to work with trends. We have to work with, if we sat here and every week we played our hunches as this is the week, like, yes, I do that with Anthony Richardson. I'm going to admit it. I'm still playing that in a lot of leagues, not every league anymore, right? But I pushed it hard. So I believe at some point, like, am I ever going to get what I invested in Anthony Richardson out of Anthony Richardson? That's no longer the goal. It's no longer the expectation. That's gone. That Anthony Richardson will not exist this year. The guy I spent 5th and 6th round draft capital on is not going to happen for the year. But could he happen over a course of games? Maybe when it matters most? Yes. So I'm not giving up on that. And so if you feel the same way about Laporta, but until that happens, give yourself some options because it hasn't been unstoppable. Yes, Detroit can. Just looking through the questions, seeing if there's anything that's I need to address before I get back to things that I want to address. I mentioned, by the way, you come in, Bob Harris. I'm here every Saturday at 11 a.m. doing this kind of stuff, discussing your issues, discussing my issues, figuring things out as best we can. I do it again on Tuesday night with a guest. We focus on the waiver wire. We do get a lot of questions then. Also, you can catch me on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Weeknights till 10 to midnight. Saturday night, 8 to 11. It's on NFL Radio and the Fantasy Channel. Sunday, the pregame show from 11 to 1 with Jeff Mans. The other shows are with Mike Dempsey, who you saw with me here on Tuesday. And you get every morning, 5:30 a.m., the Football Guys Daily Update Podcast. 10 minutes. We just kind of set the table for you. What's going on? What do you need to know? What do you need to watch for? What's got to be on the radar? That's what we do. This is true words. Tip. There you go. This is true, man. This is true. I like this hunch. This is a good play. So when we were talking about guys like Hunter Henry and others, there's a whole list of tight ends that I feel like I'm not that enthusiastic about this week. Let me share with them with you. That list includes Mark Andrews. Hunter Henry, by the way, is on that list too, but he's ahead of Mark Andrews. Pat Fryermuth, Sam Laporta, Dalton Schultz. God, what a disaster last week. Zach Ertz, Noah Fant. Put him in this list somewhere. Will Dissly coming off a huge game, listed as questionable, by the way. Tyler Conklin, this whole universe of tight ends. Colby Parkinson that are outside the top 10 that you could kind of, if you have hunches on and you see someone gaining a little ground like Tip has seen here with Noah Fant, I'm not against this. I believe this is true. I believe that. And I've been wondering all week if this isn't an okie doke. Like, they've set this up. They've got Driscoll on the active roster, so they don't have to elevate him today and tip their hand. The question is, would you drop Braylon Allen for Bo Nix, who plays late? Do you have Breece Hall? If I have Breece Hall, I don't want to drop Braylon Allen. And the Breece Hall owners would love for you to drop Braylon Allen. So keep that in mind. As much as I want to play Bo Nix this week, and I think Bo Nix is on the rise, he's still only quarterback 14 on the season. right? So I don't want to go overboard on this and make you think that I think Bo Nix is something he's not. Bo Nix is playing the Carolina Panthers this week. I could play Tua and get it over with, but if you want to have that fallback, like I think this is not a crazy move. I'm guessing you're not playing Braylon Allen ever. So like I probably want more context on this just to make sure this would be a tough decision for me. But if I desperately needed to win this week, I might be more willing to do that. How about that? How about them apples? Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Zare in the house. Sorry, I missed you earlier, Zare. I bow before you do not. You bow before no one. You're super smart dude. If Jaden Daniels can't go McLaurin over, I'm playing McLaurin over Harrison. And like, I almost feel like I'm spite not playing, like, to hell with you, Marvin Harrison. Like, he's got a huge upside, as we saw in week 1, as we've seen at various quarters throughout the season, but he just can't seem to put together a whole game. I don't know why. I don't know what it is. Matt Waldman has ideas about this. Like, he thinks this is Kyler related. I mean, he has suggested as much on our Monday podcast that I can't tell you the title of. Check it out. It's Matt Waldman's YouTube channel, the Rookie Scouting Portfolio, RSP. So yeah, so I feel like I'm like I can talk myself into a position. I think we all do this a little bit, right? And we should be careful about this. You talk yourself into a position over the course of a week where I don't like this guy. I wrote him. He's my out in my out column. Does that mean I wouldn't play him? No, it doesn't mean I wouldn't play him. And honestly, if there is no Jaden McDaniels, I don't know if McLaurin's in a great situation. Marcus Mariota was fine last week. Fine. Why? Panthers. They're playing the Panthers, which takes us back to the Bo Nix question. Everybody against the Panthers. That's how this works. Jaden Daniels had run for 50 yards before he left, 10 plays into the game against the Panthers. So, and I think McLaurin would light them up as well. So I think this is a closer call, Zari. This is probably a personal thing. I'm probably I'm playing the trend. Like, maybe you want to play the opposite trend. And someone mentioned in a question, is this the get right week? Is this where they got to focus on getting the ball to Marvin Harrison? My argument was, why isn't that every week? Why isn't every week get Marvin Harrison involved? Why isn't it every week? Let's make Marvin Harrison Jr. look like Malik Neighbors. Why is that? I don't know. And so I'm at the point where after 3 single-digit games, I would like them to show me something before I force this issue. But I think this is a close call. I'd probably end up going McLaurin. And I'd probably take it right up the last minute and switch in Harrison because I don't trust Marcus Mariota. By the way, Dempsey does. Dempsey thinks that Marcus Mariota showed him something last week in this offense. I think this is a much different matchup. So we'll see how that plays out. Luxury of riches at the running back position. Saquon, Mixon. Yes, you have this correct. Kamara's my out this week, and I'll just it's the matchup. Is not great. The offense has not been great. I think it's more about Spencer Rattler than Kamara. Just more about the offense in general. And maybe it's about Rashid Shaheed. Maybe the loss of Shaheed has changed the dynamic of this offense. And maybe that would have happened. Maybe he would have been lost, quote unquote, if Spencer Rattler was playing, just because he doesn't have the same connection built in with Derek Carr over time. That's possible. But also, he's gone. Right? So that's changed the dynamic of this offense. Is Marquez Valdez-Scantling going to change that dynamic? I don't think so. So, yeah, I think this week, that's the way to go. That's the way I would go, for sure. And I'm a huge Kamara guy. Love Kamara, who is, by the way, still running back 2, despite 2 lousy weeks. He had a week 2, 44-point week 2. That Saints offense, remember, the first 2 weeks of the season, 91 combined points. Everything was working. Clint Kubiak had this offense dialed in. They were running motion and play action and rollouts and all kinds of things. Taysom Hill was a big part of that. They lost Taysom Hill, went against the Philadelphia defense in week 3 that they should have continued to put up dominant numbers against, and they did not. I'm not going to say I'm a Taysom Hill conspiracy theorist here, but he seems to be a straw that helps stir the drink. But also, I mean, they've had injuries on the offensive line, injuries in the receiving corps, injuries at quarterback. All those things are issues. Last 2 weeks have not been good for Kamara. So until it gets good again, I'm fine playing Javonte Williams in a crush matchup. No, that's a smash match. What do they call? What do the kids call that? Smash matchup. Against the Panthers. I knew that. I was just pretending to be older than I am, which is like really old. Got a few more minutes here. I'll scroll down to the bottom and see if there's any questions. I'm sorry if I missed questions. I mean, it's impossible to get to all of them. If you've not had your question answered, go to footballguys.com. Go to the rankings. Go to my individual rankings. If you think I'm the smartest guy on the planet, say, I must know Bob Harris's rankings. You can get my rankings, or you can get the consensus of all the rankers, or pick the ranker of choice. Some of us are, have different ideas and kind of compare and contrast and see how it goes, or just get the consensus and see how it goes. Or do what I do a lot. Go to the raw projections. We have a great projection team. Jason Wood, Mauriel Tremblay, Justin Freeman, Bob Henry have done this for years and years, doing a fantastic job. I missed a question that I saw that was an easy one. Let's see what we got here. This is true. It's a miserable game we've chosen, yet we love it nonetheless. Oh no. Komet, Andrews, or Henry. I like them in that order. Or no, I like them in the Komet, Henry, Andrews order, with Komet a couple of spots ahead. Best ball flyer, or best ball DFS tournament flyer, Valet. I'm probably like, again, I'm in on Tillman this week. Watson is a great play against the Jaguars as well. Probably both of those guys easily over Valet. But in my DFS tournaments, hello. Yes, the tandem in place. That will be determined at the end of the season, but getting Jefferson is a pretty big up. Is Kupp going to play at that level alongside Puka? They could both be top 10 the rest of the year. But yeah, I mean, yes, getting Jefferson's a good play. And I'm assuming you have the depth to help fill the Waddle void. It's true. So I think the Mayfield still comes out ahead in the projections. I want to say, here's the thing about Wilson. There was about the first half, I wasn't sure he was going to make it to the second half, right? I mean, Mike Tomlin he was bouncing balls off the ground, everything. This is a great matchup. So I kind of get the vibe here. Let me just check how far apart they are in the projections. Yeah, Mayfield's still easily projected ahead of him. And I mean, I think that projection based on just Otten and Rachaad White and those other three guys cobbling together a decent showing against Atlanta seems reasonable. I'd be doing that. May, Baker, or Cousins. You could make a good argument for Cousins in that case. Baker's still projected ahead of him. Yes. I would get Tolbert. I mean, Debo's worth grabbing a guy. I would probably do that. Scampers on the list for the Tuesday show. I've just put it down. Hopkins or Bateman. I'm probably playing Bateman. This is not unreasonable, right? The matchup makes it not unreasonable. Yes. I don't have to take him out of a lineup. Makes me very happy. I think you could make an argument for Ferguson in this one. Or Otten ahead of either of the wide receivers. Jalen Warren for me right now. He has the more of a role. Mixon still a lock start. I'm leery. Like any of them could outscore the other ones. I still think Shepard is the best play. One last thought of this situation, and me and Dempsey talked about this a little bit. Like if you're playing over the course of time, like if you're deciding if this is a 1 week decision, I like Shepard, you could like McMillan, maybe you like Palmer, Steve Pavey. That's fine. But if you're playing it over the long haul, McMillan seems like the guy they're invested in who's going to have a role when Evans comes back. He'll, fill the Godwin role. So there you go. Yes. I think we say this, Paulie, every year, and it's hard to know until after the season. And because I think always in the moment, we always think it's the most. I remember thinking that last year, and it was absolutely the fewest. So I don't know. I'm probably going Smith here, but I don't love the matchup. So if you felt otherwise, I'd feel the same. Agree with that. All right, everybody. That's it for me, Bob Harris. And the football guys ask me anything. I'll be back here next Saturday at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern time. I'll be back here Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern time with the on the hot seat. I will have a guest. I will let you know who that guest is in advance on my X feed at Football Die Hard. In case you didn't know that, you can catch me on Sirius XM Fantasy Sports Radio. That would be Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday at 10 to midnight. Saturday, tonight, 8 to 11 on NFL Radio and the Fantasy Channel. We will take calls, so getting that. We'll have Jeff Bell from Football Guys as our guest, Jamie Calandro also. And I'm trying to remember, is Houston Green Bay their game of the week? Or what's our game of the week? I can't remember. Oh, it's Green Bay Jacksonville is our game of the week. So there you have it. Get my fantasy notebook every Thursday. Polarizing players with Gary Davenport every Friday. Today, the in and out is out. Coming off a tough week. Hopefully a better week this week. And check out every weekday morning the Football Guys Daily Update podcast. Me and Mike Dempsey giving you 10 minutes of the essential need to know items, kind of set you up for the day and things to look for. I know we're all busy, but I all got things going on. Go to the footballguys.com website, get the rankings. If I didn't answer your question, that answer will be there. And appreciate y'all coming every darn week and give me your time and your attention. And I enjoy the back and forth. Kind of helps me formulate my thoughts and set my lineup. So I appreciate y'all. And y'all know who you are, but the whole bunch of you. Fantastic people. All of you, even JB's grandma. We'll see you next week.